Hey people. Okay, hello, and welcome to this AETest Plus tutorial. My name is Yugotron, and today I will be showing you how I have created this quite realistic flame using only Trapcode Particular and After Effects. So you've probably already taken a look at the final effect preview, but let's just show it again so that we really know what we're up to. Okay, quite cool. I mean, it looks quite realistic, and obviously one of the reasons is the integration, because we can see some reflection here, and we can also, if you look closely, see a reflection on the table actually. But the video is a very bad quality, this video, so you probably won't be able to see that. But this is kind of the final effect. This is what we're gonna do. So let's just delete this and head over to Photoshop. Okay, so now everyone is probably thinking, what is he going to do? Well, for this tutorial you will need Photoshop, or at least photo editing software, which allows you to remove the black from an image and then save it as a transparent portable network graphics file or a PNG file. So what we'll do is we'll open it, and we'll open this flame.jpg, which you can also download. And as you can see, it is a really large image. But that's only good because it now has a lot of data and a lot of details. But it's just way too big for Particular. Because one of the things that Particular needs, that Trapcode Particular needs, is when you are going to use a sprite, and this will actually be a sprite for the flame particles, and the sprite needs to be, or well, needs preferably to be smaller than 200 by 200 pixels, because it just will speed up the process, it will speed up the rendering, and it will just take less memory than like a 2.5 MB file, because you can imagine as you're having like 2000 instances of a 2.5 MB file. I think my PC just won't make that. Anyway, what we're gonna do is copy this, close it, then create a new file, then make it 200 by 200, then paste it, and then Ctrl T on my keyboard will allow me to resize it. But as I hold Shift, you can see that I can maintain the proportions of the image. So that is what I will do. I will now scale it down, and I will scale it down until I've reached the point of which the whole flame has basically appeared in the image. So we want to make sure that we see the whole flame. So that's correct now. What we want to do is delete the background, because we want this to be a transparent image. And obviously a white background doesn't work for that. So what we want to do now is select the layer and go to Select Color Range. And Photoshop will automatically select all the black in the image. But you can also play with these parameters. But for now, I'm just going to click OK, because it's a quite good selection. And when you now hit the delete button, it will basically delete the black in your image, which is exactly what we want. Now, as I control click on this layer right here, and I go to the rectangular marquee tool, and I go to refine edge, I can refine the edge of the picture. So this is a feature which is only available in Photoshop CS5. But obviously, if you know a little bit of After Effects and Photoshop, you'll be able to do this on your own. But this is just like a quicker method, and more efficiently also. So what you want to do is you want to shift the edge. You want to make this a negative value, because as you can see, we're now having this kind of black edge around the image, and that's not what we want. So we want to shift the edge. We also want to smoothen it a little bit, because we don't want this to be too detailed. Because obviously, when we're having like 800 instances of this particle in After Effects, it can get quite messy. So you want to keep this both detailed and kind of overviewable, so that it's kind of not really too structured and organic thing. We also may want to increase the feather, because it will just help blending all the particles together in After Effects. And we just want to leave the contrast at 0, because that's exactly the opposite of feather. Now we want to click OK, and now the important thing is to right click and then select Inverse and then delete, because if you don't use the select Inverse option, then you'll delete the flame on its own, and that's not what we want. So what we can now do is Control-Alt-S to save it as a PNG file. You can see that I already have it, but whatever, I can just override it. Now save. Now I always choose interlace, but that's just my personal, I guess. Now no, and now we're back in After Effects. So what we can do now is obviously import the transparent flame, and then what I like to do to keep things organized is create two folders, two main folders actually, comps and import. And then in the import folder, I'm going to create two subfolders called sound and visual graphics, like pictures and videos. So this is the kind of basic setup, and what we obviously need now is a composition to work in. So what we're going to do is go to Composition, New Composition. We'll call it let's see, Flame. Very original, by the way. Just make it HD720p or custom or whatever you want. For slow PC, you might want to decrease this width and height, or if you need to work in Full HD, you can also do it, obviously. And I will leave the frame rate 24 frames a second because it will just give us enough freedom to work with. So let's make it 10 seconds. Standard, and now drop the composition into the comps folder, so that will keep things nice and organized. So what we want to do now is go into this little window here and then press Ctrl-Y, and this will bring up the solid settings. And what we can do is now name this fire particles, because obviously we will also be creating smoke particles. Make it comp size, make it just black or any color you want. And then what we want to do is go to Effects and Presets, and then Trap Code, and then Particular. Or you can just type it in here. It appears here, but that doesn't really matter. So what we have now is the standard particular particles that we can work with. So this is kind of the basic flame. But what we need to do is we want to modify this stream of particles in order to create a realistic flame. So let's start by modifying some of the emitter values. First of all, we want to change the position to somewhere right here so that we can basically see the flame like spreading out towards the right. Then what we want to do is set the direction to directional. So this is going to give us one particular direction in which the particles will be going. So to kind of illustrate that, let me just create a new camera. And the advantage of a camera is that you can now orbit around the particles. And as this is all 3D, you're eventually going to have like a really realistic three-dimensional flame, which you can integrate in all of your footage. And that is really kind of the power of Particular, is that it's all 3D. But the direction isn't really as we want it. So what we can do is go to Y rotation and set it to, well, let's say 90, so that's kind of pointed towards us. Now, as I make a ramp preview of that, you can see that the particles are going really, really slow. And obviously, when we have a flame, or at least something like a flamethrower, which is kind of this effect, the particles are going way, way, way faster. So what we want to go do is go to the velocity and like increase it to like 400 or something. What you can see, however, is that the particles are kind of moving out of the image, and that is not what we want, because we want to keep everything within these frames, within the composition. So what we can do is go to Particle, and then set the life in seconds to, let's say, 1. And that will make this. So as we ramp preview this now, you can see that we're having way faster particles, and we can even increase the life to, let's say, 1.5, so that will have a little bit more of a spread. And now a good thing to work with is the direction spread. When we set this to 0, it creates kind of this line, which is also a very interesting thing to play with. But what we want, obviously, is a kind of a flame, a kind of directional spread. So I want to set this to like 15, not too high, because then you will see that the particles are going everywhere. I just want to keep this, let's say 15 or something. So this is kind of the basic flame that we have created now. You can already recognize the motion of the particles and the kind of things that it will be right now. So maybe even we want a faster velocity, a higher velocity. So let's increase this to like 500 or something. Yeah, that is pretty good. And what we can do now is add some randomness to the flame, because obviously a flame is one of the most organic things that there is. So it's obviously really random, and yeah, it's just random as it is possible. So what we can do is alt-click on the stopwatch for the Z rotation, and then we'll have the ability to edit some code. So what we can do is type the expression wiggle, and then let's say 25. And what that will do, as you can look at the value, it is now -2, it is now -0, it is now +3. So you can see that it just adds a little bit more randomness. And as I RAM preview this, you can also see that it is kind of spinning, and that is well, exactly what a flame kind of does. So X rotation, that's kind of the rotation around the X, like that. So same thing for that. What we can do is alt-click on the stopwatch and add a similar expression, but now maybe a little bit slower. So let's say 5 and 10. So now what we are having is completely randomized rotation, and although maybe you won't really feel or see the difference if you were looking at two comparisons with rotation and without rotation, it does really make the flame look more organic. So this also shows how much Particular can do, considering randomizing stuff and making things look organic. So it's a really powerful tool. So now the next thing that we are going to do is we're actually going to go, let's say particles a second. No, this is pretty much it. So what we can now do is go to particle type and actually set the sprite for the particles. So what we can do is go to texture polygon. And as we go to texture, there is no layer to work with except for the layer itself, which is not what we want. So what we need to do is, let's just close this, drop this flame.png into the composition, but we want to hide it. So as we go into the flame particles, hit F3 to go to the effect controls, and we'll go to texture. We can see the flame transparent, and you can now see that we are having very small flame particles. So to increase the size, we can basically go to something like 30 or something, maybe even like larger, 100. Obviously that is too large, so let's set it to 50. So right now it may look kind of stupid, really unprofessional, but we'll work on that. Because what we can do is set the size randomness to, let's say, something like 30. Again, the size randomness is a really important factor in this tutorial, because it will just allow people to add random data to their data stream. In this case, the particular effect. And seriously, random things are organic. Seriously, in nature, never things are really organized and structured. Everything is random. And that's also what people are trying to recreate in visual effects. And these are tools that are helping us to recreate that. So just always be sure to, if you have an effect, just try to randomize stuff, just to make it look authentic. Now also what we want to do, and that is also a really important thing, is the opacity randomness. So you can see that this really adds like this extra touch of realism into the flame. So this is a really important factor in randomizing the flame. So now, the last thing that we want to do is also really important. We want to set the transfer mode to add. And this will kind of get the some burned effect, because on places where there's a lot of particles on top of each other, it will kind of burn the colors until a very bright light. And at the parts where there's less particles, you will see that nothing changes. Like here, there's only one particle and nothing changes. But here, a lot of things changes. So that's also what makes it more realistic. So now as you can see, every particle, although different sizes, goes in the same direction, same rotation. So that is what we need to fix right now. We want to just close this, and we want to go to close this. We want to go to rotation, and obviously we want to add some random rotation to everything. Let's like 210 or something, and you can now see that, well, maybe even more, like 20 or something. And you can now see that the particles are getting really organic, and that because every textured polygon is being rotated differently with a different opacity of different size, you can see that it creates a really cool kind of effect. We also may want to set orient to motion on, because it will just give the particles a different path. Although in this case I don't think that it would really make a difference, but no, it is a nice thing, really. So, obviously one thing that I forget to mention is the live randomness, and we want to increase it to, let's say, 15. So some particles will have a live 1 second, and some particles will have live, for example, 2 seconds. And again, this will just add a randomness to your flame. So shading. No, this is good. Physics model, air, graffiti. No, obviously we do not want to add graffiti unless we want to create some kind of lava stream or something. But obviously fire doesn't interact with graffiti. So this is really kind of the what the flame should look like. So let me just do a RAM preview, because I'm still a little bit concerned about the speed of the particles. They're going a little bit slow, I think. And also, again, as you can see, the RAM preview is going really slow, even on a quad-core computer with 4 gigs of RAM, and a 1 GB video card. So you can see that all those little files of, let's say, 100 KB, are being represented in the composition, so it takes you slower data to read and write and things like that. So let's do a little preview. No, it really goes too slow. Register, no. We want to increase the velocity to 800. And now, we want to decrease the particle life in seconds. So let's say 0.6. Oh, more. 0.9 maybe? Yeah. But as you can see right now, we have a kind of a thin flame. So what we can do is go to emitter, and what we can do is increase the particles to, let's say, 300. And you can see that we're having a really cool flame right now. So by the way, also a cool thing is that now, as we move the emitter, the particles will basically react to that. So let's just where it is. Ah, there it is. Keyframe it. Then you, right there. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure for that. No, but what we can do right now is, yeah, you can see that it really kind of reacts like a torch. Which is really a great thing of this flame. And we even want to increase the particle per second to, like, let's say 400, so that we're really getting a very nice flame right here. That just looked awesome. Okay, so one of the maybe last things that we can do is go into the physics, and then into air, and then what we can do is go into turbulence field. And what we can do is just basically increase the effect size to, let's say, no, let's make this 90, and the effect position also to, let's say, 40. So as I visualize these fields, you can see that basically instead of a straight line where the particles are going through, we are now we're now having just kind of again a randomly generated line, which is not perfectly straight, but it is kind of a smooth curved. And well, it's basically what it says. It's a turbulence field. So set visual fields off, by the way. So that will also create a kind of really organic effect. And as I ram preview this, you can see that although it goes quite slow, you do have to get in mind that we are working with a couple of hundred particles now, turbulence fields, sprites. So in fact, it's not even that slow. But you can see that it's just really cool now. So one of the last things that you want to do is go into the motion blur tab and then set it to on. I do have to warn you though. On my PC, as you can see, it renders incredibly slowly, but it does give the flame its final realism. I'm sorry. Because the motion blur is just a lot of work to calculate. But it is really what gives this flame its realism. Because you can see that as we turn it off, we are having a lot of sharp edges, and we're having kind of much too detailed, too much texture inside of the flame. And as we set the motion blur on, you can see that we're still having some details and contrast right here, but yet we're having a lot of kind of smoothness to it, really just what a motion blur does. So that is kind of the flame part of this tutorial. And what I want to do next is set the motion blur off, because it will just render quite slow. And what we want to do now is create the smoke, because that's also obviously a very important part of a flame. So we want to call this smoke particles, and just apply particular to it. Just turn the flame off for a second. Again, the random thing, the basic thing. So usually what I do is I go to animation presets, and presets, and then to the trap code particular presets. Because setting the smoke up isn't really difficult, and using the preset can be very handy. So what we want to do is smoke darker. We want to use the darkest smoke, and what it does is it just generates dark smoke. But as you can see, it generates this kind of missile. So what we want to do is go to emitter, then just position. We want to just take the stopwatch so that it will have only one position. And then a very interesting thing, what we can do is go into the physics and then to air, and we can make a wind like that. So you can see that depending on the length of the fire, let's say to here, we can increase or decrease the wind. So let's say the fire goes to there, then also the smoke should be somehow somewhere going to there. And also we want to increase the amount of particles so that it kind of gets thick smoke. And then we also want to increase we want to be it directional. And we also want to increase the direction spread, so that it just gets a little bit more random. You know, it's a little bit more thicker, you see. So well, that is, I think, kind of the smoke part. Let's just put it underneath the fire, obviously. You can move the layer around, maybe even scale it like this, make it bigger. And obviously, right now it doesn't match, but what you can do is go to fire particles, then to emitter, and it is already keyframe. So what you can do is hit U, and then right here what you can do is also click this stopwatch, and then hit U, and then what you can do is alt click on the stopwatch, and then you can parent it to the position of the fire emitter, so that now they will basically link up, which will cause both the fire and the smoke to move simultaneously. So last thing, what we can do for the smoke particles, although it will not be as obvious as for the fire, we can add some motion blur to it. Like add it on, you can see that there's not really kind of a difference. But for right now, for the fire, we do want to let's say, motion blur. We do want to enable it. So this is probably kind of, so this is kind of the final mix of the flame and the smoke. So now the last thing that we are, well, the single last thing we're going to do is add an adjustment layer. And then, well, again, for the fire, let's just turn the damn motion blur off. It just takes so much time to calculate for the computer. Anyway, we'll type in glow under stylized tab. And you can see that it already gives much more cooler look. However, what we want to do is set it from original colors to A and B colors. And the color A is already set to a very good color. Because as you can see, as I change it to red and to white, you can see really the difference. As I change it to white, you can see that we're kind of having a very hot, kind of intense feeling to it. So we want to make it a little bit combination like this pinkish white, I think. And then for the B color, which is kind of the lower colors, you can see that as we make this white, you can see that it really has this kind of intensity to it. So what we can do is, as we make it black, you can see that there's no difference. But we kind of want to make this intense, let's say, like light gray or something. So that is the last thing that we're going to do. By the way, I do not like the smoke right now. It's just, yeah, like this. Anyway, what we can do for the last thing is go make a new solid and make this like kind of this color. It's not really a nice color, I think, but just make it this color. And then what we can do is hit T for opacity and bring it down. Then go to the the ellipse tool, and then just draw an ellipse around the flame and the smoke. Then hit F for feather, then increase the feather, and then set the transfer mode to add. So now you do want to be really careful when using this, because you only want it to affect the flame and obviously not the smoke, which is also going red now. But what you can see is that it just gives just kind of a more of a reddish feeling to it, and it just makes the things look more complete. So for the just final image, we're going to turn on the motion blur, and then this is our final fire, like this. Okay, so this was it. I hope that you have learned something from it, and also to be creative, trying things your own, and also making things really authentic. Trying to do things that no one has seen before, trying to use your own techniques, your own presets, and things like that. So premium members can actually download this project file, the source file, and regular members can just watch the tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed it, and my name is Hugo Trump, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.